Hi, everybody. Welcome to this special CUBE conversation. My name is Dave Vellante. I'm here with Noemi Greyzdorf. She's a storage consultant, an expert in the field. Noemi, good to see you.
Nice to see you too,
Thanks for
Dave.
coming into our studio here in lovely Marlboro. You're a Boston girl, and so it's, I know it's a little trek, but
It's not too bad.
we like it out here. The time of traffic, it's not so bad. Okay, so let's get into it. I want to pick your brain. You've been in the industry for quite a number of years. You've been on the vendor side, you've been on the consultant side, you've been the market research side with IDC, you know the channel, you know technology. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Kind of ended up in storage accidentally. When I was at Genuity, do you remember the company Genuity?
Yeah.
It was the first foray into hosting, and they were trying to build cloud services. And I got hired into that organization and somehow ended up having to put together a strategy for their storage services at Genuity for their hosting customers. And that was my first foray. And I just fell in love with the industry and ended up from there going into Diligent Technologies, launching the first virtual tape library product, then moving into the channel. And I've been sort of working mostly with the bleeding edge technologies for the last better part of 25 years.
Who was the guy who ran Diligent?
Duran.
Duran Kempel, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What was it like working for him? Challenging guy, right?
It was
Very
challenging.
demanding, you know?
It was demanding. It had its pluses and minuses, but I really worked for Mike Parisi, who was really great to work
Oh, yeah,
for.
Mike Parisi. I
Yeah,
knew Mike from,
EMC.
was he at
Yeah, he was an EMC before that.
EMC? And he was at Data General?
Yeah, I think he was a data general before that.
Yes,
And
right.
I made a number of friends when I was at both Diligent. That's where I met Jacob Farmer from Cambridge Computer. Learned even more about storage because there was a little bit of a mainframe component to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, a number of years at Cambridge Computer, leading the strategy around portfolio companies, bringing new vendors on board, like Wisdom Software with Alan Atkinson.
Uh-huh. He's at Commvault now.
Yes, I talked to him.
Commvault. We'll come back to that. I saw him at Commvault Shift, which was in the fall, maybe October, November.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years since I've spoken to him, but
He's the same.
yeah, yeah. Wisdom Software was interesting in the idea of marketing that product and selling it. So I closed one of the first big customers for them, which was Pfizer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Out of Groton?
I got
or
New
New London?
London.
Yeah.
Well, it was both New London, Groton. But
They were a customer of my first startup. I knew the CIO of one of their divisions. They gave us a shot, and it was.
it was
They
nice.
were hot back at the time. Pfizer's had some challenges lately, but
Yeah, but it was an interesting process. I learned a lot in that sales process in general, in terms of just bringing a new product to such a company as Pfizer. There's a number of others, but one of the things that I did a lot at Cambridge Computer was provide consulting services to our customers around re-architecting their data protection environments, bringing in new technologies, creating greater efficiencies. Same thing with storage, also governance. And through those processes, again, always driven by the curiosity on technology and how people actually adopt technology and what they do with it once they bring it in-house. So data domain, I remember selling the first D200 and then DD400 or 460, I think it was.
that was a pretty innovative product at the
It
time.
was incredibly
I mean,
innovative.
I remember I was talking to David Flory one time, and he said, everything that we see in the industry, I've seen before in mainframes, except data deduplication. Right?
Yes.
And so they had something there, but you know what? What ultimately happened is that there was a one-time step function, and then kind of everybody, got on board. And while they had the lead and they created the market, its TAM petered out. I remember Frank Slootman saying to me when he, I think it was when he was at ServiceNow, he said, the problem we had, it might have been in his book too, but he did tell me this before he wrote the book. The problem we had at Data Domain is we just ran out of market. And we'll never make that mistake again, is what he said. So ServiceNow, you can see what ServiceNow is doing now. It's through the roof. And of course, Snowflake has a virtually unlimited TAM because it's data. Yeah.
Right.
So that was kind of interesting. All right, let me ask you a question. So you had said earlier when we were chatting that you felt like the AI cycle was hyped, maybe even said overhyped. Of course, it was hype. That's what makes it exciting. Is it real? Well, so first of all, do you think it's overhyped? Do you think it's real or not? I've talked to some people who are like, yeah, the ROI is just not there. I've talked to other customers like, no, it's off the charts. So it's like you get these mixed signals. What's your thought?
It's both. Like the politically correct answer, it's both. So there's definitely a lot of efficiencies, and there's a lot to be gained from AI, both in, for example, in healthcare, there's a huge gains in operations, there's a huge gain in cybersecurity. Most cybersecurity technologies like intrusion detection and stuff is based on machine learning. It's based on neural networks. It's based on all of this interesting stuff. It definitely improves efficiency when you know how to use the technology properly. Where I think, and so if you look at specific areas, it's being adopted, and, fundamentally AI is, not to oversimplify it, but, it's a statistical model that has thousands and thousands of, theoretically variables, which you could never use traditional statistical analysis to actually get to or work through. So there's definitely a lot to be gained, and there are companies who are leveraging these kinds of models to bring new solutions and new offerings to the marketplace, and they're killing it. And if you're focused with the right, you get the right focus, it can help you in millions of different ways and create efficiencies. On the other hand, which is what typically happens with something hot technology or a concept that comes to market, is everybody gets on the bandwagon, so everything becomes AI. Is everything AI? No. Is AI conceptually exactly, when you have data, you have a very specific question that you're trying to apply the data to in order to solve a specific problem. Are they all doing that who are claiming they're AI? No. Are the processes, like from an infrastructure perspective, are there processes, demands on performance and storage and networking that have existed that are similar to what AI demands? Sure. Can they be improved with some of the newer technology that has been presented for AI? Sure. But again, not everything is AI. And so that's where the hype is.
When you say not everything is AI, you mean there's a lot of AI washing going on? Or do you mean that AI doesn't apply everywhere? Because I would argue that AI will be infused into everything. I mean, it's slowing down our PCs, it's on our mobile, it's everywhere in that sense. But are you saying that when you say everything is not AI, is that AI like hype and AI washing, or do you think it's not applicable everywhere?
So, but again, both, because there's a lot of claims to be AI. So you say, I'm AI. You're not AI. You're maybe enabling technology that can enable somebody to do the right processing of coming up with, because you have to come up with a question that you're trying to solve. What is it that you're trying to do leveraging these models? It's not just as simple of ubiquitous AI. I mean, I think everybody, when they think of AI, they think of ChatGPT, or they think of, Cloudly, or, Gemini, or something like that consumers use. You go online and it's like, I don't know what I'm looking for. I'm just going to type in a query and it's going to spit out all this information, and then I can go from there, for example. Or, how to better rephrase the sentence that I'm trying to put together. Okay, fine. That's what people think of AI, but that is a very finite, specific area of AI. When you're talking about the application of AI in typical operations, in logistics, in healthcare, whether it's clinical or non-clinical, right, diagnostic, or just operational type stuff, there you have to have a very specific, what is it that you're trying to get out of it? And then you build it from there. And I don't believe that all of these people who are claiming they have AI are actually doing that. I think that a lot of previous processes and systems have been rebranded AI. So that's one side. The other thing is that AI doesn't have emotional intelligence. It is what you make it to be. And if you...
Maybe ever.
We don't know, right?
Don't know. I agree.
Let's say it's beyond my capability to comprehend.
I don't know.
And so is AI going to be everywhere? It might be. Whether it should be or not is a separate question. I mean, there is an ethical and a moral question that's associated with AI that is not my strength, or I'm not qualified to comment on it. But
Okay, but it feels like it's going to be ubiquitous. All right, let's talk about storage. So one of the reasons for the hype is because, I mean, the data center, the data center business has been about, when you include like all the data center infrastructure, and then add in compute, storage, networking, electricity, water, power, the whole thing, cooling. The business was about, 200 billion. Maybe it's 210, 211, 209. Maybe it dipped in COVID to, below 200. But essentially, it was a perpetual $200 billion business. And in 2024, it jumped from that, low 200s to like 350 billion. And it was all accelerated computing.
Yep.
Which was like, whoa, what happened? And then that's when all the CapEx started to rush in. You're talking about $500 billion in CapEx this year from the hyperscalers and Meta. And so got people's attention. The question is, when you look at the stack, we know that the silicon, the processor component has shifted from general purpose x86 kind of to accelerated extreme parallel processing, accelerated computing, as Jensen calls it. That's clear. And then there's, because the networking is affected, the storage presumably affected. I'm going to come back to that, the data stack, et cetera. How does that architectural shift, assume it's happening as it is, I mean, assume it's got legs, because our forecast is it'll hit $1 trillion by, early next decade. Let's assume that's correct. And it'll, things don't always go smoothly. Ken Olsen said one time at IDC, I hate your forecast because they go straight up. I'm like, I get it. And so, you know what I mean? But so assume it's directionally correct. What architecturally needs to change in storage to accommodate extreme parallel computing?
So a lot of it has to do with memory and how the software is written, right? I mean, who was it? I was talking to somebody recently, and they were mentioning that they're trying to rewrite the software so it uses practically no memory. Oh, it was in the gaming industry, because there's now a huge shortage of memory. There's shortage of a lot of things. And so the programmers and the developers of these games, they're very heavy on memory.
Vast, like we just had a little analyst briefing where they I'm gonna hold off. It might be NDA.
Okay.
But they have some certain advantages on memory efficiency, but I'll just leave it there. Sorry.
The idea is, how can you build a piece of software, right? Like, how do you develop code that uses as little memory as possible? I think over however many years, a lot of software, because the resources were so prevalent, the code got bloated in many cases, right? So, but that aside, so there's a memory issue in terms of processing. From a storage perspective, I think the bigger challenge for a lot of people is as they hoard data, is how do you keep it for an extended period of time without causing operational challenges, without data loss, and yet monetizing it, and yet protecting it, and yet deciding to keep only what you really need. Because from a computation perspective, we have faster drives, we have faster networks to get to the data, right? We can get bigger caches. There's all these different things, technologies that are being adopted in order to facilitate fastest and parallelizing it, faster access, right? So when I need something, I have it ready. There's predictive technologies that, predictive algorithms that are being put so that, if you're doing this and you hit this, and this, you're probably going to need this. So I'm going to bring it before you actually even ask for it, right? Yeah. So all of those things are being developed. They're being brought to market, and that's a huge on the high compute sort of, side of storage. But what people are not necessarily really paying attention to, at least in the marketplace, is where does this data live? Okay, you processed it, or you created it, or you used it, and you dumped it. And where did you dump it? And how long can it live there? And what does it represent? Are you protecting it? How much is it costing you to keep it? How are you going to migrate it from one media to the next? to migrate sometimes a petabyte of data can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. People don't account for that cost.
Bad word, migration.
It's a very ugly word of migration, right? But if you have data sets that are living all over the place and everybody's trying to monetize the data, before you can feed it into any engine, you got to bring it someplace, or you got to aggregate it somehow. Otherwise, you're going to be pulling data here, then you're going to pull data here, and then you're going to pull data here. How do you bring it all together? How do you make it more ubiquitous? How do you make access more ubiquitous? Those are the challenges when you're dealing with inordinate amount of data.
People talk about disaggregated storage. Is that an answer, or is that...
Disaggregated storage is just an architecture.
Well, so explain it. Explain what disaggregated is, how, if at all, it relates to AI.
Disaggregated is you're disaggregating compute part of the storage and the access from the actual capacity stuff, so that you can grow capacity independent of compute.
Okay, that's a big deal.
It's an architecture.
It's been in the cloud. I mean, Snowflake kind of.
Yeah, I mean, there's and then there's of course the challenges of how do you access the data. Traditionally, first there was fiber channel or block storage. Direct attach. We moved into networking. To create efficiencies, but the biggest growth in data is non-structured, right? Not in structured data. So how do you store unstructured data? How do you access the unstructured data? Is it NFS? Is it, NFS 4.1, PNFS is exists, but who's really adapting it? There's SMB, its own challenges. There's security parameters. Now you got Object S3 as a standard API for, RESTful API for access. And there's a new sort of interface that has come out, which is called Iceberg, if you're...
Very well. Yeah, sure. Right. Open table format.
Yeah. So because now you're going to help analytics. That's one of the ways that you can maybe aggregate your data, give access to lots of different analytical platforms to utilize it for what they need to be doing without having to replicate it, without needing to move it around, right? So that, I have to put it into Snowflake. So I'm going to move these petabytes here. Yep. And then I have another copy over here for Databricks or for some...
The challenge there is how you govern it.
That's a big
the catalog
thing.
that you're going to use? Are you going to use an open source catalog? Are you going to use a proprietary catalog?
And scale.
Informatica?
And how do you do it at scale?
Okay, let's do a little lightning round here. Sure. I'm going to throw a bunch of names here. I want to talk competition. Pure, Vast, Dell, NetApp, Rubrik, Cohesity, Veeam, Commvault, AWS, Google, Microsoft. Let's stay on storage. How do you see the state of play in storage today? How is the market changing? What's the competitive dynamic? Who's winning? Who's challenged? How do you see it?
So most of the storage vendors are trying to hit all the points that they can serve, meaning different storage systems. So like Pure, for example, they have their traditional block storage system, they have their file system, and then they have the object system. So if you think about, okay, how do you go to market and what is going to be your different, how do you win customers? And, you have to be either highly more scalable, you have to be, have certain features that somebody may want in that space, and you have to be cost effective. This is where the ugly migration word comes in, because now you have to actually extract a petabyte or 2 petabytes or 10 petabytes from your competitor systems to move it onto you. So there's a lot of challenges in terms of switching vendors. It's harder. Same thing with NetApp, right? You want to go after the biggest margin business. And so again, it's your NAS. Do you have the scale? Do you have the performance? Do you have the right protocol supports? The on-prem vendors, they're all going in the same sort of, they're going in the same direction. How are they competing and who's winning? To be honest, I think it all depends on how the organization views what they offer, the relationship they have with the company, their support matrix, their past experiences.
So those things haven't changed.
No.
I mean, the cloud has significantly outpaced on-prem for the past decade. Do you see that changing as a result of AI? I mean, you're seeing Dell, ascend to well beyond 100 billion. They sort of were at 100 billion, they dropped, and then AI comes out, and now they're selling AI servers like crazy, largely to tier 3 or tier 2 service providers like a CoreWeave, the Lambdas of the world,
yep.
the Neo clouds. probably I think it's starting in some of the big financials. They're starting to see them, penetrate there. But does the pendulum swing back to on-prem with HPE, Dell, Lenovo?
I think it's going to find they're going to find sort of like a balance, because a lot of customers who have gone to the cloud, so there's definite benefits to going to the cloud, and the storage that is consumed in the cloud is associated with the applications that are being run in the cloud for the most part. I mean, there are instances where you can run your application in the cloud. You can go through Direct Connect, for example, fast network connection into Equinix data center, for example, and you can have your own storage. But there are challenges with proprietary data in terms of who can access it, how well it's protected. We've had instances of Amazon being down a number of instances, depending on who you are. That could be a big deal. So there's definitely use cases and applications that belong in the cloud. And those are typically the ones that have where you're looking for the right tool set, where you're starting out, or that are very dynamic.
So, sorry to interrupt, but initially a lot of the AI activity has been in the cloud. And so, but you talk to a lot of customers who say, I'm doing a lot in the cloud, but I'm not going to move my core systems into the cloud.
Right.
And I want to AIify them. So I want to build my own on-prem AI stack. And that doesn't come out of the box. I mean, you look at the AI factory from Dell, and it's hardware and infrastructure software. It's not this surrounding ecosystem of AI tooling. How do you see that playing out? Will the cloud ultimately wrestle that away because it's got the AI tooling, or will the on-prem guys figure it out better than they figured out cloud, because cloud was painful for them?
Yeah. It's hard to say, because I think that it depends to what extent the AI is part of your core business or core to your business. So if you are somebody whose whole business is really based on how AI produces the results that are used then, as your product or as your service, I think they will probably AIify their own infrastructure where necessary. Again, depending on, how.
Like a financial institution, the big banks, JPMC.
Yeah, they'll do that. Smaller enterprises where maybe it's not core to their business, or it is something that they're exploring, they're building, they're trying to figure out where it fits or how to fit it into them, right. They'll probably continue using the cloud until they either figure it out, or it might be just economically more feasible to keep it in the cloud and not bring it on-prem, because it's either a smaller or it's a targeted, well-defined, justified by financial models, aligning with business requirements. So like, for example, one of the challenges with the cloud was people is like, everybody going to the cloud. So I have an application that doesn't really change. I'm going to dump it in the cloud. Of course, after 3 years, it's going to cost you a lot more. But if you have an application that is more dynamic, like it requires bursting, and it requires more data, more compute, less compute, and you can leverage the cloud in order to accommodate those.
Yeah. That makes sense. Our good friend, Alan Nance, rest his soul, just passed away recently. We first met him, I think it was at a Vertica conference, and he was the CIO of Philips. And he said exactly what you said. If you just lift and shift it, you might pick up a few nickels eventually because you're renting. It's going to actually cost you more, but you have to change the operating model if you want to
Absolutely.
develop, to get telephone numbers for a company the size of Philips. So that speaks to the mandate of the actually, let me ask it this way. You talk to AWS, Google, AWS in particular, cloud's less expensive. Here's the study from IDC that says so. You talk to Dell, says cloud is cheaper. Here's the study from IDC that says so. What's the truth? And when is the cloud more expensive? When is on-prem?
When is
the cloud more economically, viable? When is on-prem more economical?
Well, you just answered that question yourself by saying when it's aligned with the business model.
Okay, cool. All right. What about the data protection side of the world? There's a big thing around, Bipple was the first with Rubrik to say, we're a security company. It was like, that's crazy. That's a pivot. Well, boy, has it paid off for those guys. And now everybody's a security company. Security is becoming a fundamental component, or data protection, a fundamental component of security. there's this term of cyber resiliency. Commvault coined the term ResOps at Commvault Shift, which probably ticked off a lot of the competitors. It's interesting, marketing move. What is ResOps? How do you operationalize it? On and on and on. Rubrik again was first. Certainly Cohesity, Dell, presumably HPE, I don't know, and certainly Veeam are all kind of playing around there. What do you make of the state of data protection, security, ResOps? Cut through the noise there.
It's all an insurance policy, realistically.
At the end of the day.
Data. At the end of the day.
It's all about the backup and to be able to recover it?
It's not about a backup. It's about accessibility and availability of your data, no matter what happens, right? So whether it's a cyber attack, you're protecting your data, however you're protecting it, whether it's somebody fat fingering or deleting or something crashing, a drive fail, whatever it is, you want to protect it, and you want to protect the operations of your business. So at the very top, it's all about, I'll call it business protection, but there's different technologies and different motions to protect your data and your business against various things that can happen. And there's not one solution that can do it all. I mean, of course, everybody wants to say that their stuff is going to be the end-all be-all, but that's not how it really works, right? So whether you're a cybersecurity company trying to protect you against ransomware, or you're traditionally were labeled as a data protection company, they all kind of come together to protect your business against whatever can happen. It's an insurance policy. So unless you can somehow leverage it, and you can, because the perception goes a long way. So if I am known as somebody who has good, solid security, I've never been breached, I've never lost data, your data, you have...
You're a unicorn, if that's...
Yeah, but, meaning, but perception-wise that you have the right sort of standing, you definitely can win more customers and bring in more business than if you're somebody who is known as somebody who's lost data or, PR goes a long way in that regard. So, but in the end, you're protected because bad things will happen. That's just a reality. And you need to protect you against those things and how they will affect your business so that you don't, implode.
All right, last question. 2026, early in 2026, any predictions for the year? What's your number one prediction for 2026?
Oh, I don't like predicting. I generally don't like predicting.
You have to.
I have to predict. Okay. I think there's going to be a little bit more sort of reality check on the whole AI.
You think it's maybe an ROI backlash or?
I think that people are going to start actually looking at the ROI. It's not going to be just kind of, diving head first. It's going to the same thing happened with cloud, same thing happened with virtualization, is stepping back and going, okay, how are we going to use this really powerful technology to advance our business objectives rather than just, okay, we're going to go to AI, we're going to do AI. Well, like, why? What is it that you're trying, like, how are you going to leverage it rather than just...
I'll pick up on that. I kind of agree, and I want to either extend it, and it might even sound like it's an opposite side of that, but I think 2026 is going to be the year where, because people have been struggling to get value out of AI, but there's a certain group of companies that are leading, big financial institutions, big pharma. And I think 2026 is going to be the year of, SHI blank. We better figure this out or we're going to be left behind. So it's either going to play out that way, or it's going to be a big backlash where, boy, there's no ROI here. And if that's the case, then it's going to be the AI bubble, maybe pops a little bit. But Noemi, thanks so much for your insights. It was great having you on this CUBE conversation.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
You bet. And thank you for watching, everybody. This is Dave Vellante. We'll see you next time on theCUBE.